Vladimir Putin says he supports the US-led ceasefire deal for Ukraine. The Russian president insists, though, he must talk to US President Donald Trump before agreeing to any deal. He says he still has reservations about a ceasefire, including how it would be enforced on the 1,000-kilometre front line of the conflict.
We agree with the proposals for the ceasefire, but our position is based on the assumption that the ceasefire would lead to a long-term peace, something that would remove the initial reasons for the crisis. How are we going to resolve the issues of control or verification? How can we be guaranteed that none of this is going to happen in the future?
Well, we got some awesome news this morning. As you saw in the previous clip, Vladimir Putin has been open to ceasefire discussions, ultimately hoping to lead to a long-term peace agreement with Ukraine. And he does have some conditions in there, one being Ukraine not being allowed NATO membership. Why is that? Because any member of NATO, if they get into any conflict with any other nation that's outside of NATO, every NATO member jumps in and is going to fight on behalf of that country, which means if Ukraine was in NATO, when this whole thing would have started, we would be in World War III right now, because all of the NATO members would pounce on Russia, which would force them to defend themselves. And that's how you lead to nuclear issues that could decimate and obliterate everybody on this planet. And we don't want that. And luckily, we got President Trump in the White House, who took control of the wheel and has brought this thing to where it should have been brought years ago when Joe Biden was president. But guess what? President Biden was too weak to get it done. And yes, I said that. As a matter of fact, in this video, I'm going to lay out some clips to show you exactly what's going on and just why President Trump may be getting the Nobel Peace Prize. And I know it sounds crazy. You might say, what, Brian? Are you just throwing that up? No. President Trump's name is actually being tossed around for the Nobel Peace Prize. And it's for the situation, just an example of the situation right here with Ukraine and Russia. But let's take a step back for a second. Let's look at this clip when Joe Biden went on 60 Minutes, close to the beginning of the war with Ukraine, as he issued threats to Vladimir Putin that might have had him shaking in his boots. Check this clip out.
As Ukraine succeeds on the battlefield, Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner. And I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
Don't. It will change the face of war, unlike anything since World War II.
And the consequences of that would be what? What would the U.S. response be?
You think I would tell you if I knew exactly what it would be? Of course I'm not going to tell you. It'll be consequential. They'll become more of a pariah in the world than they ever have been. And depending on the extent of what they do, will determine what response would occur.
Now, as you heard in that clip, he said, don't. And we know what Putin did. He totally ignored that quote unquote threat and went deeper into Ukraine after that. And what did Joe Biden do? Just opened up the checkbook, invited Zelensky to come over, throw the G.I. Joe uniform on, stomp around the Capitol and stomp around White House and leave with $100 billion, half of which the total President Trump is saying we've given Ukraine $350 billion, half of which the Ukrainian president says he doesn't even know where it is. So this thing that we got going on with the media where they were down talking Trump, trying to put this peace deal together. Oh, it couldn't happen. Oh, he's Putin's puppet. Just because he refused to go on television and trash Putin publicly like the Democrats and Biden would do. But Biden would not only trash Putin publicly, he would actually insult the Ukrainian president publicly. As a matter of fact, do you remember when Joe Biden did this on one of those visits where, Zelensky came in and left with $100 billion? Remember this clip? Check out this embarrassing moment for the United States of America on the global stage by our former leader, or should I say our former person that was playing the role of president while somebody else was dictating and using the auto pen, Joe Biden. Check this clip out.
And I commend all the nations that stepped up when it counted to stand with Ukraine. I've said before, Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President, I'm better. You are a hell of a lot better.
If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, hit that like button, because I will never ask you for a cash app. I'll never ask you for a super chat, but you hitting that like button, it helps because it helps spread the video around. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. On the Real Politics Podcast, that's what we do. We talk real politics. So once you subscribe, hit the notification bell, then select all. That way you'll be notified when I upload new video. Now, how embarrassing was that for the leader of America who invited over our ally in Zelensky, fighting against the big bag Putin in Russia, to literally call him Putin's name on the global stage? But yet the media was telling us Joe Biden's the sanest he's ever been, and he's doing backflips and running races, running circles around staff members. These people get on my nerves and they make me sick. Now President Trump, after 3 years of this war going on unnecessarily, and I agree with President Trump, it would not have happened if he would have been in that seat in the White House, but it did happen. And he was the only one that was capable of bringing Vladimir Putin to the table and Zelensky to the table. And Zelensky almost blew the whole thing. Remember, he came to Washington to meet with President Trump. And this is only months after he was campaigning on behalf of Kamala Harris, which is one of the dumbest and most disrespectful things to do. This is how confident the Democrat Party and these globalists around the world were that Kamala Harris and the Democrats were going to win. Because in foreign policy and political strategy, you would know, is an election going on? Let me not side with any one over the other, because you never know what's going to happen. That's typically the way an individual, a leader would think, unless they have some inside information that things just might go another way. He campaigned in Pennsylvania on her behalf, then fast forwarded to sitting in the White House with President Trump, who only an hour earlier had been meeting in a secret meeting, privately secret meeting, with the Democrats, the quote unquote leaders of the Democrat Party, who told him to not take the deal, stonewall, treat President Trump rudely. And you know what happened? A rude awakening happened in there. It did not go the way Zelensky and the Democrats had planned. Why? Because they're dealing with a real alpha male in that seat. President Trump was not going, or Vice President Vance was not going to allow this foreign visitor to come into the Oval Office. He already didn't wear a suit, which they had agreed on. Most people don't know that Zelensky had agreed that he would wear a suit during that meeting with President Trump, which is why when he arrived, President Trump said, hey, look, he's overdressed. That was sarcasm. So that was disrespect number one. Disrespect number two was to come into the Oval Office and to tell President Trump what we're going to feel and what we're going to go through, all while you're asking us for our help. Then thirdly, is you want to try to disrespect the VP and talk about he's talking loudly and whatnot, as if you were going to put him in his place. That was where President Trump drew the line, pulled out the lash, and let Zelensky have it. Then booted him out of the White House. And the media went crazy. All for within minutes, Zelensky said, oh, Lord, what did I do? And was begging to come back in there and meet with the president. Just like everything else. Canada, oh, Mexico, Canada, the tariffs, it's going to be terrible. No. Because anybody that has any familiarity with economics knows those countries' GDP rely on us way heavier than we do theirs. So this is the same exact thing. Everybody thought it wasn't going to happen. They didn't think Trump could do it, but he did it. Let's check this clip out showing our president being able to bring two other leaders of nations together in a ceasefire that will save millions of lives and will protect and hopefully can set up and establish a long-term peace where the people of Russia and the people of Ukraine can go about living their lives without any risk of any bombardments or any more wars or losing any more family members or population or the population in Ukraine has been decimated. Over 25% of their male population is dead. And so luckily, President Trump brought this to the forefront. Check this clip out.
We're back worldwide here for you on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us. We do want to update you on some breaking news. We knew that the call was going on with President Trump and Putin. That has wrapped up. It went over 2 hours talking about what is the latest with the war in Ukraine. What are some of the pathways to getting a ceasefire? And we are getting some new details from that call. Fox News' Jackie Heinrich mentioning this, saying that the White House putting out this readout saying today President Trump and President Putin spoke about the need for peace and a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. Both leaders agreed this conflict needs to end with a lasting peace. They also stressed the need for improved bilateral relations as well. The leaders agreed that the movement to peace will begin with an energy and infrastructure ceasefire as well. as technical negotiations on implementation of a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. Full ceasefire and permanent peace. These negotiations will begin immediately in the Middle East. The leaders spoke broadly about the Middle East as a potential cooperation to prevent future conflicts as well. They further discussed the need to stop proliferation of strategic weapons and will engage with others to ensure the broadest possible application. The two leaders shared the view that Iran should never be in a position to destroy Israel. The two leaders agreed that a future with an improved bilateral relationship between the United States and Russia has huge upside. This includes enormous economic deals and geopolitical stability when peace has been achieved. So to reiterate, let's bring you back here full in just a moment. The White House readout continues saying this conflict should have never started and should have been ended long ago with sincere and good faith peace efforts. The leaders agreed that the movement to peace will begin with an energy and infrastructure ceasefire, as well as technical negotiations on implementation of a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. Full ceasefire and permanent peace. These negotiations will begin immediately in the Middle East. So it seems like there will be a tiered system when it comes to a ceasefire and how they will go about it. We should also point out the Kremlin putting this out, saying in context of ceasefire initiative, Putin said that there must be a stop to Ukrainian mobilization and arming of Ukraine as well. Again, we are bringing you these updates from the White House, and we are waiting to see also if there will be press available for President Trump's.
So there you heard it. You know, this is the beginning of the long-lasting peace between Ukraine and Russia. The initial step, though, is the 30-day ceasefire. They agree to a 30-day ceasefire while they put all of the particulars in it. And one thing that Putin has asked is that NATO not arm Ukraine anymore and not allow them to become a NATO ally. And in return for that, he'll go on back to his part of the East and relax over there, do his thing. Now, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some concessions that Ukraine is going to have to make. Like they may have to give up Crimea, which is the location that has the Russian-speaking people in it, which is what kicked off this whole thing in the first place. So we'll have to wait and see. But I will tell you this, the fact that it's got to this point, only President Trump, I mean, I say this, I mean, only President Trump out of all the leaders in the world could have brought this deal to fruition. But it would have never happened if he'd went about it the way the left-wing extreme libtards would have wanted him to go, which is insulting Putin, insulting the Russian people, and just continuing to kiss Zelensky's butt and giving him a wide-open checkbook to keep sending him money, with Ukraine being one of the most corrupt countries, for one of the most corrupt governments in the world. One of the most corrupt countries, known as, even Joe Biden has said it publicly in the past. But we opened up the checkbook, just flooded them with money, half of which we don't know what it is now. We hear about Zelensky buying his wife $400,000 vehicles and big-time mansions. And it would not surprise me as after all of this is over, Zelensky's going to get booted out of the presidency because he eliminated all elections, eliminated all political opposition, took over the media, made it state-run media, government-ran media. His approval rating, from what I understand, this was alleged, was around 12%. It was in the dumps. The people are ready for him to go because they've been wanting a ceasefire. And they realize that the longer it goes on, the longer he stays in power, the richer he gets. And once it's all said and done, he probably will go off in exile somewhere, like the other world leaders did, like Idi Amin and some of the other atrocious dictators, go off over there and live with their hundreds of millions of dollars and just ride off into the sunset until God comes to make them pay for what they did to the people. But other than that, I just wanted to jump on and share the good news. Vladimir Putin has agreed to the ceasefire. Kudos to President Trump. And I definitely feel like he, if anyone deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for this time right now, it's him. And the next thing he's going to stop is the Israel and Hamas confrontation. That's next up. But got our border secure, has brought a ceasefire to the Ukraine-Russia situation, and is working steadily on Israel and Hamas. Wow, doing everything he is, lowering eggs, lowering gas prices. Our border is the most secure it's ever been. This man will go down as one of, if not the best president in the history of the United States. Definitely the best in my 46 years of life. So, hey, listen, let me know what you think in the comments. If you've watched this far to this point, I really appreciate you. And I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you haven't already, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Other than that, I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.